Okay, hi, welcome to another conversation. This time is the first time we have a student on, so welcome to Aiesha. Do you want to just introduce yourself, a little bit about you and your degree program so far?
My name is Aiesha. I study digital interaction design, which is a science that's held within DJCAD. I'm in second year going into third year right now, and second year is the first time that I've actually done any extensive amount of coding within my entire degree and education.
Cool. So what was your kind of thoughts before you started programming? Because you do two modules, right? So
Yeah,
1/3 of your year is programming.
yeah, the two modules in creative interactions and physical computing. I'd done a tiny bit of it in first year. We do a small introductory 2-week course into Arduino, in which they give you an Arduino kit and say, go and learn, which is quite fun when you've never seen it before in your life.
Yep.
So being told that you're going to end up doing programming on CSS and stuff like that is a bit intimidating straight off the bat, but after it's all kind of went and settled, it's actually quite good. But it's utterly terrifying going into second year being told, hey, a third year course is now coding.
Yeah, so the first day, do you remember the first day you went to your first programming class?
The first day, yeah, because it was a kind of like pandemonium for us because none of us had ever been to a lecture outside of DJCAD. So the whole first issue was trying to get to the Fulton building, never mind the fear of coding. But it was basically like computing students would sit in their own kind of group and then the designers would sit in their own group. I found it quite entertaining at first. I thought it was quite fun seeing all like the different things you could do with coding. However, my two classmates sitting next to me were utterly terrified.
Yep. Why? What was so scary for them?
I think it's because they do product design, so they don't really do as much extensive work with computers as I do as a digital interaction designer.
Yep.
So their initial thoughts walking into was, we don't need to do this, so this is going to be something that we never need to look at. So they had no background knowledge in it whatsoever.
Yeah. How long did it take them to be less scared, do you think?
I think it was after the first kind of lab that we had, which we all thought was quite fun. It was building a recreation of the Android robot and processing. Yeah. After that, it's like, okay, this is actually not as bad as we thought it was going to be.
Yeah, so how was that experience for you, like doing that first little Android guy?
I actually generally thought it was quite fun because it was more maths based than I thought it would be. Like, I'm quite maths oriented over English, so I thought it'd be quite wordy and stuff like that. But once you figure out that it's just from the corner and it's just, well, everything's coded in shapes, you get your head around it. It's like, oh, okay, this is actually quite fun.
Yeah, so what was the most fun bit? I'm going to assume that an Android guy wasn't the most exciting thing that happened. Maybe it was. But what do you think was like the most enjoyable part for you of processing?
Of processing, it was probably the Snapchat assignment.
Yep, okay, which is the interactive draw an image, edit an image type thing, right? Okay.
Mainly because of once you kind of, well, it was what I thought would be the worst part was the whole debugging issue. So when you're coding something, everything goes wrong. Yeah. I thought that'd be the end of the road. But sitting there and actually going through the code, and once you get it to work, when it all works in the end, it is genuinely one of the most satisfying things that I've went through this year.
It's so true. But that debugging thing though, that's probably the most challenging thing for people to kind of get their head around. And like, what sort of strategies did you use to figure
I ended up, for most of mine, it was comment out one line, run it, okay, it still isn't working, so that's not the issue. Comment out the next line, okay, now it's working, so that's our issue.
Yep. Comments are such a huge bit of it, and like out into the console, like I always get kind of projects from students and there's like almost a story in the console where it's like the for loop is running, the for loop is still running, you're like, yep, cool, got it. Which is nice. But were there frustrating parts, like
Definitely,
that you came up against and that you found difficult to get the concept or to get it to work or things like that?
yeah. After the assignment, after that ended up, it was supposed to be like a museum installation, and working in a group, our massive issue was that one computer couldn't handle the amount of code we were running. So we had to end up splitting it over two computers. And it was trying to figure out, well, obviously because as background designers, we don't know too much about computer hardware. And it was my flatmate who's really into computers was like, I can tell you right now, one laptop cannot run this. So we ended up having two laptops, a projector, and it was just trying to figure out how to actually carry the hardware across multiple platforms, making sure everyone knew how it worked.
And so how difficult was that, working in the team and making sure that everybody knew what was going on, how it worked, that sort of thing?
The teamwork, it got there in the end, but it was the initial kickoff of, I mean, once you get an idea, everyone's kind of on task and everything, that's fine. But I found that throughout the year, just trying to come up with an idea, especially for like trying to combine coding and design, there can be a bit of a clash. But once you get over that whole stumbling block, you're basically just walking into a run. It's quite good.
Yeah, okay. So you did the processing stuff first, and then like you move on to the physical computing, which is on one hand perhaps a bit more theoretical, and on the it's maybe a bit faster paced because there's an assumption of some knowledge then. How did you find the jump from one kind of screen-based thing to the more physical Arduino-based thing?
Since we kind of went over a bit of Arduino, it wasn't as bad, and processing and Arduino they actually do interact with one another. So it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, but it was also the jump of, in creative interactions, we still got to work with other design students. So there was that kind of bit of a home there, which you're like, okay, I can stay with. Yeah. And then go into creative interactions in which you were in a group with other coding students you had never met before and never interacted with before. It was a lot more daunting in that case. But it's actually been quite interesting.
Did it work?
It did work eventually. Yeah, it did work. It was mainly different barriers in communication. So I would try and explain something in a way I was taught or a way that I would explain it to other designers. And then the computing students would say, well, that doesn't actually work that way. And then they would try and explain it back to me. And then I would be confused. They would be confused.
Yeah. But how do you think that's helped you though? Like you've had that kind of experience of almost translating things from design to technical and back again. And the experience of actually doing the programming yourself, which I think is so important. Although I do think like there could be more time to read programs and understand them. I think we spend a lot of time creating stuff and not necessarily figuring out what already exists, right? But how do you think that experience is then going to help you, you know, the rest of your degree and onwards?
Well, especially in the climate we are right now with everyone social distancing and things like that, I can see basically using quite a lot of coding. I actually ended up using processing for a part of my design work going into the second semester. My classmate and I were designing a kind of radio system, and we thought, well, we don't know how else to make a menu setup. Hold up a second, I've got processing on this. Code it together.
Know how to do that.
It's like simple. Here we go. This is brilliant. But being able to know stuff like that means that in as unprecedented situation as this, through my modules next year, I'll be able to make more computing-based stuff.
Yeah.
Which means that I don't need to go into the university, and there's a lot less issues with social distancing. I might be able to make more products that might actually be associated to staying apart social distancing issues. which is good in a way, but also didn't really expect that to happen.
No, I guess it's just a nice kind of combination of settings that means you've just got that knowledge at the time you're going to need it, right? It's so interesting that you said like, oh, but I know how to do it in processing, I'll just do it. Because for me, that's the value of it, that it's a very interactive, prototypey type thing. I mean, the fact that program's called a sketch kind of gives the game away, right? But I just think it's so nice that you can create stuff super fast. But what do you think is in your career future? What do you fancy doing after you finish up with uni?
After uni, I've already started looking into like possible career paths going into third year, and like, within my first semester as well, I also did like web browser coding and such things like that.
Yep.
We'll run across the same path. So going online, I started going to LinkedIn.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people looking for different web browser coders or people being able to do such creative coding.
Yeah.
Which I found was quite interesting. And like one thing that was looked at by like a very few companies in Glasgow was actual processing, or like it was some type of branch of processing Arduino, because they found it was quite useful just to like play about and experiment with.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. So I don't think I've actually ever seen a job application that lists processing as a skill.
Yeah, I put down processing in mine, and it kind of matched me up to one. I was like, oh, that's a unique one.
Oh, really? Okay, fine. Yeah, cool, awesome. So kind of looking back now that you've done the whole kind of journey, what's your advice for students that are coming specifically from that non-programming, maybe less technical background into computing classes?
Just don't be afraid of it, because the more you fear it, or like the more you kind of hold yourself against it, it looks scarier. It's like you just need to take it step by step and just go, right, when you think about it logically, a rectangle, you just shorten it to a rect, and that's it. It's much easier than you think it is. And also just don't overcomplicate it, as I've tried to do several times and had to delete several ounces of code. It's just all about taking your time and just, especially with the debugging issues, but you'll learn to enjoy it.
Yeah. So what was the part for you, do you think, that it kind of went from being, I know you said the Arduino guy, but what was the part where you kind of felt you had confidence?
It was definitely
from scared to, oh, okay, I can explain this to other people. Was there a moment?
It was setting up the Snapchat assignment, and it was, my group had asked, I set up quite a big chunk of it, and I sat there, I was like, this is what I've done so far. And it went, right, so how does any of this work? And so I just sat down for about 10-20 minutes and just went, right, so this is what correlates to this. This button does this, and that button does that. And it's just being able to go through step by step. And then at the end of it, I was like, oh, I actually do understand some things of this. It's not just a bunch of words that I've put together and somehow it creates something in the end.
It's so empowering when you're like the person who has the thing. Well, that's how it works. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm done. I've run out of questions. So yeah, thank you very much again.
No
super excited. The first student conversation. Hopefully one of many. So yeah, thank you very much.
No problem.